Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Now, there's been a crazy amount of conversation going around about add-ons in the Midnight expansion and how we're losing a lot of tools, losing a lot of functionality, and in general might need to see add-ons be built up anew. But there was a recent Wowhead post that has given me a little bit of hope, and I hope that it's going to be a trend that begins or hopefully continues with allowing a compromise with the whole add-on situation, because previously they said they don't want to have add-ons give a competitive advantage over what the base UI does. But the problem is the base UI has a lot of limitations. Now they're working on it. We're constantly seeing updates, but at the same time, it's still very far away from what we've been able to experience with add-ons. And herein comes this new Wowhead post where Platinator, one of the plater replacement add-ons for nameplates, is now able to add customization to change the health bar colors based off of mob, mini-boss, caster, melee, or trivial type monsters. This then allows people to better parse through the information and be able to, see what's going on. It's a pretty cool tool. That being said, this crosses the line for what Blizzard had previously said was going to be their limit. And that's where I think this is a compromise that can come into it, because players want to have more tools that the base UI doesn't have, and Blizzard is far behind on delivering those things, and maybe they'll catch up before March's release, maybe not. So why does the line have to be drawn at a March release, for example? And why not allow add-ons to do very specific things, but make sure that there's limitations and make sure that Blizzard's eventually going to be bringing up the default UI to compensate. And this is where I think that really big compromise can come around. But first, it's also important to make sure you're not compromising on your finances, especially when the holiday season is coming around. And that's why our sponsor for today's video, Rocket Money, has everything you need to make sure you're keeping your budget and keeping a good eye on your finances, as we're doing, of course, all that holiday spending like I got behind me as well. I've been using Rocket Money for about 6 months now, and I've been using it, especially as a streamer and content creator, to have a lot better control over my finances because I get paid pretty irregularly. But even if you are getting paid more consistently, it's great because it allows you to track very specifically and categorize your spending into very easy sections that you can also build up really cool pie charts and graphs to understand where you're spending your money, where you are making that money, and how you can best make sure you're balancing it for the rest of the year. Their subscription management is also top-notch, allowing you to have one specific section to look at all of your subscriptions, allowing you to see where all of this money is going every single month and understanding how that's going to be impacting your finances. They also can help you cancel any of those subscriptions with just a few taps from the app itself. So go to rocketmoney.com/AutomaticJak to get started for free, and check out the QR code or click on our link in the description down below to get that free premium membership with all the extra features as well. Big thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video, and let's continue. Now, we've seen, of course, that there's some workarounds that people are already putting in, but what if Blizzard is saying we don't want to allow those workarounds? Well, this is where they are going to open Pandora's box, and there's going to be a lot of problems, because this initial Platinator workaround was something that they didn't intend to allow, and players found a way around it. And if that sounds familiar to you, well, that's just the entire history of WoW. Players always find a way. And by opening this Pandora's box, where Blizzard's trying to take ownership of the add-on situation and limit their constraints, they also are going to be trying to hold up the dam that has a couple cracks in it. And they have to make sure they're consistently just plugging the holes over and over again when these workarounds come around. So I think that this is a premium opportunity for them to look at what add-ons really use well and present well that players are going to miss a lot, and making sure that they actually have this kind of conversation with the add-on developers and saying, yes, you can allow this thing, like, for example, Platinator, being able to mark large groups of mobs, saying all the bosses are this color, all the mini bosses are this color, all the casters are this color. That's a great way to have nameplates, and that's how the baseline nameplates should function as is. And that being said, maybe it'll take Blizzard some time to do it or something like that. They absolutely should. But then they should just allow Platinator, Plater to do those things long term. The same thing goes for, raid frames. They have been making some improvements to the raid frames. They added Louis Vuitton sparkles whenever a player has a negative healing absorb, and you have to heal them through it in order to heal their health bars. It looks a little goofy, but it works, and it stands to reason that add-ons will be able to manipulate that texture and change it around, which is good. The side that's not good is when you have things like this, where a druid has tank debuffs overlapping external debuffs from time dilation, which are overlapping from hots and externals. It's just a mess onto the raid frames. And while you can, of course, manipulate all the debuffs into one section, all the buffs into another section, there's still a lot of work that is needed to be done. If you've seen the advanced cooldown manager settings, you can actually add or remove different cooldowns from the tracker itself. You can have like a blacklist and whitelist for it. And it stands to reason they should have that for your buffs, because there's some miscellaneous buffs that you're going to want to reorder or just take out entirely because they may not mean that much. You know, Divine Aegis for a Disc Priest is not going to drive your decision making when you're playing that spec. So you don't really need to track that buff at all. And so this is another, premium opportunity where they can go and should be looking to go to the add-on developers and saying, these are some of the constraints that we are going to be fine with. And then here is where like a new line is going to be drawn, because I really expect it to be, take a lot of time to make our, I think everybody understands it's going to take a long time to get the base UI at a sufficient level to where, add-ons have gotten us, or, even getting them 80 or 90% of the way there. And so why have some kind of concern about having the UI being finalized and it must be ready at this level? It's Blizzard. They never have a final product on Season 1. They never have the final product of hero talents at Season 1. Kind of took us until Season 2-ish to get to that level. I don't expect this, perfection, and the player base doesn't expect this perfection right when the expansion starts. So why punish Season 1 because the default UI is not ready? It just doesn't really make any sense. And so this is where that sort of compromise can come around for all of these add-ons, because I guarantee you that if you don't have the conversation with people with add-ons, that people are going to just go around Blizzard and they're just going to develop other tools to work around the systems. And this is where things are going to get nasty, because this is where Blizzard's going to put out these constraints, but what's their enforcement going to look like? Are they going to be, banning add-on developers or having issues with add-on developers because they're finding ways to make their UIs better than the base UI and they're not allowing it? That's a problem I could see 2 or 3 months down the road if they sit around and do nothing about this. But if they proactively are saying, here's what our enforcement's going to be and here's what our constraints are going to be, you can actually work out a pretty decent compromise where the UI team has some breathing room and they don't just have this massive fire under them that they need to just work until they get everything perfect by launch or else. And then the player base can actually get the tools that we've relied upon for years. It's a really good way, I think, of making sure everybody gets some kind of win with this. Obviously, the collateral damage of revamping or remaking add-ons from scratch, from what I've heard from add-on developers, could be a huge workload for them. And we're pretty lucky to have a player base that's actually willing to put in all of this work to make these kind of things happen. But the way I see it, the base UI has gotten to a sufficient level, and I think for a lot of more casual players, it'll be fine for them. But I also think for a really large quantity of like veteran players, you're going to be a little confused when you start seeing these frames or you start seeing some of the overlaps, especially in like higher raid sizes. And I think there's a bunch of sort of like lingering problems that the base UI still needs to address across, damage meters, across raid frames, across nameplates, all those kind of things. And an add-on compromise, I think, could be just the thing to start addressing this early and also kind of figure out what do they want the future of add-ons to be. So that is my hope. I would really love to hear what you guys are thinking about with the add-on situation. And we are going to be doing some more deep dives when it comes to the raid frames, because I know there's a few different add-ons from like Dandar frames that people have been suggesting to me. Thus far, I've been running with the default frames and they've been okay. But there's definitely some situations where I'm struggling to find atonement in, a 30-player environment or even like the 20-man squished up raid frames as well. So let me know what you guys think. Big love to our patrons for making all this content possible. And thank you again to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all next time.